These are professional fighters who showed cops exactly why you don't mess with the wrong person. What happens when law enforcement meets someone who fights for a living? Sometimes it goes exactly how you'd expect, and sometimes it goes completely sideways. Picture this. You're a police officer responding to a domestic violence call. You arrive at the scene, and there's this massive dude who looks like he could bench press your patrol car. You're thinking it's just another night dealing with some wannabe tough guy. Except this time, the wannabe is actually Gervonta "Tank" Davis, one of boxing's most devastating knockout artists with 28 knockouts in his first 30 fights. That's exactly what happened in Miami in January 2026. Davis had been on the run for 2 weeks after an arrest warrant was issued for battery, false imprisonment, and attempted kidnapping. The WBA lightweight champion wasn't going down easy. It took a 3-county surveillance operation involving both local police and the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force to finally corner him. When they did, Davis was apprehended without major incident, but you know those cops were sweating bullets the entire time, knowing they were dealing with someone whose job is literally knocking people unconscious. But here's where it gets really wild. Sometimes the cops aren't trying to arrest the fighter. Sometimes the fighter is the cop. Meet Sean "the Cannon" Gannon, a 20-year Boston police veteran who moonlighted as a bare-knuckle fighter. In 2004, Gannon did something absolutely legendary. He walked into a third-floor private gym in Rhode Island and became the only person to ever defeat the mythical Kimbo Slice in a bare-knuckle fight. For those who don't know, Kimbo Slice was basically the boogeyman of street fighting. This guy was knocking out grown men in backyard brawls that went viral before going viral was even a thing. He was massive, scary, and seemingly unstoppable. Then along comes this Boston cop who looks like he should be directing traffic, not throwing hands. The fight lasted 13 grueling minutes. Picture 40 people crammed into a sweaty gym, watching these two warriors tear each other apart. Gannon took a beating, his face was bloodied. He had a gruesome hematoma that made him look like he'd been hit by a truck. But he kept coming forward, landing body shot after body shot, wearing down the legend. In the end, Kimbo Slice, the man everyone thought was invincible, collapsed from exhaustion and couldn't answer the 30 count. The video of this fight got 1.8 million views on YouTube and became the stuff of legend. But here's the twist that makes it even better. It was all for charity. Every penny from the DVD sales went straight to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So not only did this cop humble the king of street fighting, he did it to help sick kids. Of course, the Boston Police Department wasn't exactly thrilled about their officer becoming an internet sensation for beating people up outside of work. They launched an internal investigation, though Gannon was eventually cleared. But the concussions from his fighting career caught up with him, and he spent his final years on desk duty before the department essentially forced him out. Now, let's flip the script. Sometimes fighters aren't the ones getting arrested, they're the ones doing the arresting. In 2022, former MMA fighter William Cassidy was driving through town when he witnessed something that made his blood boil. A suspect was trying to punch police officer Jamison Smith, who was struggling to control the situation. Cassidy didn't hesitate. This guy has been training MMA for 13 years and holds a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He jumped out of his car and showed the suspect what real fighting looks like. "I just did a little drag so that his body would turn, and I put him in what we call a rear naked choke," Cassidy explained. "I tightened it up, dropped him to the ground. He couldn't do anything because I was squeezing on his neck. And then he kind of felt like he went limp for a second, so I loosened it up." The beautiful irony? Cassidy later realized he knew Officer Smith. They were family friends. Sometimes the universe just works out perfectly, but not every fighter-cop interaction ends so cleanly. Take Jon Bones Jones, arguably the greatest UFC fighter of all time. In September 2021, just after his UFC 165 victory over Alexander Gustafsson was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, Jones found himself in handcuffs at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. The Bodycam footage tells the whole story. Two officers arrive at the casino lobby to deal with what they think is just another drunk tourist causing problems. Instead, they're face-to-face with someone who spent his entire career perfecting the art of human destruction. Jones was ultimately charged with domestic battery and property destruction, though he later pleaded no contest to the lesser charge. When the arrest video went viral, Jones had the perfect response. "LOL, I was hoping that video got lost in some files somewhere." Even getting arrested, the guy keeps his sense of humor. Then there's the case that shows what happens when a fighter's moral compass kicks in. In August 2010, UFC veteran Roger El Matador Huerta was outside a bar in Austin, Texas at 2 a.m. when he witnessed something that triggered his protective instincts. Rashad Bobino, a former Texas Longhorns linebacker, had just assaulted a woman. Huerta didn't call for help. He didn't try to de-escalate. He walked up to Bobino and delivered street justice that was caught on camera and viewed by millions. The knockout was so clean, so perfectly timed, that it looked choreographed. One moment Bobino was standing, the next he was face down on the pavement, completely unconscious. UFC President Dana White's reaction was perfect. In no way do I condone street fighting, but when a guy puts his hands on a woman, he deserves to be knocked the F out. Good for Roger. Sometimes justice doesn't wait for the legal system. The most disturbing case involves Jonathan War Machine Koppenhaver, whose story serves as a dark reminder that fighting skills can be used for evil. In August 2014, War Machine broke into his ex-girlfriend, Christy Mack's Las Vegas home and brutally assaulted her and her new boyfriend. The beating was so severe that Mack nearly died from her injuries. When the U.S. Marshals finally tracked War Machine down in Simi Valley, California, they found him in a hotel room with a small amount of cash and some pizza. The guy who once fought in the UFC was reduced to hiding out with leftover pizza. He was convicted on 29 felony counts and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 36 years. But perhaps the most satisfying recent incident happened in February 2026 at a house party hosted by former UFC champion Quinton "Rampage" Jackson. A streamer named DeenTheGreat was running his mouth to retired UFC fighter Tiki Ghosn, threatening to slap him during a live broadcast. Big mistake. Ghosn, who spent years in the UFC cage facing killers like Robbie Lawler and Chris Lytle, delivered an elbow strike that dropped the mouthy streamer like a sack of potatoes. The best part? Ghosn didn't even spill his drink during the exchange. The clip went viral instantly, racking up millions of views and reminding everyone why you don't threaten professional fighters. The aftermath was even better. After publicly apologizing and challenging Dana White to book a fight with Tiki, the humbled streamer's week ended on a high note when Rampage Jackson gifted him a $20,000 watch, crediting him with revitalizing his streaming career. Sometimes getting knocked out is the best thing that can happen to you. These stories remind us of a simple truth. Professional fighters are professional for a reason. Whether they're wearing a badge, defending innocent people, or just trying to enjoy a party, they possess skills that can't be faked or intimidated. When someone spends their life perfecting the art of controlled violence, underestimating them usually ends with you on the ground wondering what just happened. The next time you see someone who looks like they might know how to fight, remember these stories. Because in a world full of pretenders and keyboard warriors, sometimes you accidentally run into the real deal, and the real deal always wins.